Elizabeth Gilbert is an author best known for her best-selling book, Eat, Pray, Love, and was named by Time magazine to be one of the 100 most influential people in the world. She went from being a cook, a bartender, and a waitress to writing a New York Times best-selling book, appearing on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and becoming a multi-millionaire. Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 for my top 10, top 10, 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Elizabeth Gilbert, and my take on her top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1, share.
The moment, the distance in time and space between the moment when I learn something that helps and saves me, and how much time I can allow before I desperately want to put it out there in case somebody that day needs it.
Yeah.
That's a very short time span for me. And I feel it's that I have to, and I don't feel like I have to necessarily out of responsibility to them, because again, I don't know if it's useful. I just know that it starts to hurt me to not share it.
Yeah.
It actually feels like pain. I remember my guru in India used to say, any talent that you have that you do not use becomes pain. But I also think any wisdom and insight that you have that you do not share becomes pain. Like, why in the world would I not share it? Like, if I know so intimately what it's like to suffer, I know so intimately, deeply in my bones and skin what it's like to not know what to do. You know, so if I've been given like one little glimmer of light, why in the world would I not be like, you want this?
Yeah. I got something for
because
you. Take it.
I've been so helped by people who have been generous enough to learn in public.
Yeah.
You know, I think learning in public is such a generous thing for people to do, because we look to it and we're like, Brene learns in public, Glennon learns in public, Cheryl Strayed learns in public, my friend Rob Bell, Martha Beck, they're all brave enough to learn in front of us so that we can maybe get something.
Rule number 2, be ambitious.
We were talking about competitiveness.
Right.
And you said there's a difference between competitiveness and ambition.
Right.
So can you talk about those
Yeah,
things?
because you were talking about being very competitive, and I am actually not a competitor. I'm not a competitive person, but I'm a very ambitious person. It's taken me years to recognize how I discern a difference between those two words. And they are sometimes overlapping, but not always. I think it's rare to be one without the other. But in my case, I'm definitely ambitious. So to me, competitive means I will beat you at everything from thumb wrestling to like who can cross the street faster, to who can drink this coffee faster, to who can, like, at whatever the thing is, there is only one rule, which is what they used to, who is the horse that they used to say only had one rule, and that was that she had to win. That's it. That's the only rule of competitiveness, right? And ambition, which is interconnected but can also be distinct, means I will be the very highest possible version of myself that I can be. And it doesn't have that much to do with what anybody else is doing. You know, and so for me, the ambition is, what is the best writing that I can do? And that's why I don't spend a lot of time looking at, it is nice if you can win.
Rankings is what
you
you're
know,
talking about,
rankings and stuff. It's
so you didn't
nice.
look when you were like 10 years on the New York Times list? You weren't looking at the list?
I was
every
so
time?
happy when it first hit there, but then, no, I didn't spend every Saturday morning opening up where am I now? Am I on
right.
And I wanted to, and it's also, yes, but that felt like a personal achievement, but I don't resent the person who then took my spot. You know, when my time was over and somebody else became number one, I wasn't like, it kills me to see somebody else at that position besides me. You know, like that doesn't, I come from a really competitive family, and I think from an early age, I just felt like this feels slightly dangerous to me, how much everybody cares about beating everybody at everything. I can't even join that.
Sure.
This just feels like too much work and too much at stake for everything.
Rule number 3, always tell the truth.
But to feel comfortable and relaxed, it takes a lot of really radical, it's an interesting pathway. It takes foundational, unbelievable honesty. You have to kind of be telling the truth all the time, which is weird because you would think that wouldn't be relaxing, but what it does in the end is it gives you a lot more time and space to not be doing the hustle. You know, like that's like a line I'm guided by, is that grace can take you places where hustling can't. And at the center of grace is just this integrity of great truth telling. This isn't working for me. Like this situation, saying no, but saying it just like, it's okay. It's like, yeah, you can ask, but no. I spend most of my day saying no. That's a large part of me learning how to be relaxed. You should definitely try to have a completely honest relationship with at least one person in your life, and probably best if it's yourself. Yeah. It's a good place to start. Yeah. Like I can't speak anybody else's truth, you know, and I was guided by this, really like schooled in this intimately for years in my relationship with my partner, Rhea, who died a year and a half ago. Before we were together as a couple, we were best friends, and she had been a heroin addict and a speedball junkie on the Lower East Side, just in Rikers Island, in years living on the streets, in prisons. She'd just had this really horrific, brutal early life, and she ended up astonishingly getting clean and staying clean for 19 years. And her path to that was, of course, truth-telling, which is the cure for addiction, not cure, but treatment. Yeah. And she embodied it in this really remarkable way. And she had an adage, and she was the person in the world I was always most relaxed around because she only ever told the truth. She always knew where you were. Yeah. You would never have to guess. And everyone in the room was safe because Rhea was always telling the truth. Whatever bullshit what else was going on, there was like one center, very like dense gravitational truth-telling always happening. But the line that she lived by, and she passed it to me, and now I live by it because I can't not, is she used to say, the truth has legs. It's the only thing that's going to be left standing in the room at the end of the day. Everything else will blow up, everything else will disintegrate, everything else will dissolve into drama. The truth is where you're going to end up, inevitably. So since it's where we're going to end up, why don't we just start with it?
And then save time.
And save the drama. Yep. Like, let's
now I get the time comment.
Start with it. Yeah. And that's like, I've repeated that with people so many times where I'm like, well, why don't we just begin with it? You know, like create a judgment-free zone, start with it. And it saves your life because it saves like so much pain and agony and drama. If there's pain to be had, let's just do it now. Yeah. And that's been transformative to me and actually has made me be a more relaxed person. I think when I was younger, I used to think, I can't tell the truth because the world isn't safe. It's not a safe place for the truth or for my truth. And now I've realized you make the world a safe place for you by telling the truth in it. That's how your world becomes safe, is through your own honesty.
Rule number 4, ask the right questions.
My friend Sarah Jones, who's a performance artist who's won, Tonys and just fantastic. She has a beautiful way of expressing this, that she said, at the beginning of any creative endeavor, there's a highway that I have to be on. This is her words, not mine. I'm paraphrasing. She said, there's a highway that I have to be on to do this work. And along that highway, there's any number of detours. And anytime I find myself asking questions such as, am I going to be able to win a Tony with this? Is my agent going to be able to sell this? Are people going to want this? Is the audience going to respond to this? Is this the right kind of work? Is this what the market is calling for? She said, all of those questions are detours off the highway that I need to be on. And any of those questions that I start asking myself at the beginning of a creative journey is going to take me right off that highway and into this same neighborhood every time. And that's a ghetto where they're going to take the hubcaps off my car and beat me and leave me for dead. Because it's going to leave me asking the wrong questions. And the only question at the beginning of this creative endeavor is, does the thought of making this illuminate me, ignite me, make me feel like I can't wait to get up in the morning and give meaning to a life that is otherwise often very difficult? If the answer is yes, then I'm on the right road.
Also, if you want to learn from other women entrepreneurs and writers, check out my 254 series, where every day for the next 254 days, I send you an amazing unlisted video. It's free. The link to join is in the description below.
Creative living is any life that you live where your decisions are based more strongly on your curiosity than your fear. It's perfectly okay to have an ego. We all have one. The definition of your ego is it's a bottomless hole of desire. It can never be satisfied with anything. The only thing I have ever wanted to be for my whole life was a writer.
Rule number 5, don't look for shortcuts.
Every single thing that's of value that I've ever experienced in my life, I'm always looking for the, like how to hotwire it. Like there's gotta be a way to do this without, none of it. Spiritual growth, personal growth, relationships, physical health. Like there's not one single piece of it where you're like, there's a way to, there's a way to get at the top of this without actually putting anything in.
No, totally.
There's no hack.
And I actually hate that. That word is becoming on the top of my pet peeve list.
Yeah.
Everyone trying to hack things. And I'm like, stop it, just do
by
the work.
Way, hackers. Yeah. How do you think they got so good at hacking? They sat there in their bedrooms for like 20 years learning how to hack. There is no such thing as a hacker who just woke up one day and was like, I know how to get into the Pentagon. These guys are really skilled. They put the time in. They totally so that word doesn't even really work for what we think it means.
Rule number 6, accept the reality.
There's a tremendous faith that has to come in believing that the real is the right way, even if it doesn't look like it in this moment, and to stop arguing with reality and to figure out how are we going to now live in accordance with reality. This is the reality. So now what are we going to do? Rather than, let's pretend this isn't the reality.
Yeah.
Let me take whatever drugs I have to take to pretend that this isn't the reality. You go do whatever you have to do to hide to pretend that this isn't the reality. And then let's just see where that leads.
Rule number 7, don't set yourself up to fail.
I was #1 New York Times bestseller for a year. If all I cared about in my life was being at the top, there was a day that came when I wasn't that anymore. And that would have been a very bad day for me. Yeah. Instead of me being like, this journey's amazing, and now what am I going to make? When I wrote the book that came after Eat, Pray, Love, my book Committed, which I still really like, that book sold 1/1000th of the copies of Eat, Pray, Love. If I were somebody who only had to win and I saw that chart, that's a plot.
You would have committed suicide.
I mean, that is a bad chart. Like that's the opposite of up and to the right. That's like a stark. And instead I was like, I like that book. I still like that book. And now what? Now what do I want to make? Because I think you can't stay there. You can even get there. I had this woman write to me, this young woman who said, I don't think I should be made to feel ashamed that I don't just want to be an actress. I want to be a great actress. I want to be a famous actress, and I want to win awards. And I said, no one should make you feel ashamed for that. I wanted to all those things in writing, but just know that if that is your only motivation for doing this, satisfaction will never be in your hand. Yeah. Because let's take it to the top, even if you win an Oscar, what happens the next year when someone else does? Yeah. Right? So be ambitious, want everything, no problem. But if you don't have a soul reason to do it, you only have an ego reason to do it, then you're setting yourself up for a life of suffering where you will never have enough. Yeah. And someone will always be on your neck, coming up behind you, and you will never know when to rest in contentment. And that just sounds like hell to me.
Rule number 8, avoid perfectionism.
Perfectionism is it's a serial killer that just goes around killing joy, spontaneity, wonder, grace, humility. It just kills it all. And perfectionism, I think, is a particularly dangerous kind of fear. I always call perfectionism fear in high-heeled shoes because it's fancy. It's like a really fancy haute couture version of fear because perfectionism can advertise itself as a virtue, and it can trick you into letting it think that it makes you special. Yes, because people have such high standards. Yeah, have such high standards. I'm like, I just can't rest till something. I'm a perfectionist. It's what people say in job interviews as their fault. Yeah, well, I guess I just care too much. And you're like, wow, you're telling me. But what you're telling me when you say that is that it's going to be very hard for you. Not only to finish something, but probably to begin something. Because the true perfectionist won't even start because they know already that it's not going to be the thing that they're dreaming of. And their tastes and their standards are so high.
Rule number 9, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Writing books is my profession, but it's more than that, of course. It is also my great lifelong love and fascination. And I don't expect that that's ever going to change. But that said, something kind of peculiar has happened recently in my life and in my career, which has caused me to have to sort of recalibrate my whole relationship with this work. And the peculiar thing is that I recently wrote this book, this memoir called Eat, Pray, Love, which decidedly, unlike any of my previous books, went out in the world for some reason and became this big mega sensation, international bestseller thing, the result of which is that everywhere I go now, people treat me like I'm doomed. Seriously, doomed. Like, they come up to me now, like, all worried, and they say, aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid you're never going to be able to top that? Aren't you afraid you're going to keep writing for your whole life and you're never again going to create a book that anybody in the world cares about at all, ever again? So that's reassuring, you know. But it would be worse, except for that I happen to remember that over 20 years ago, when I first started telling people when I was a teenager that I wanted to be a writer, I was met with this same kind of sort of fear-based reaction, and people would say, aren't you afraid you're never going to have any success? Aren't you afraid the humiliation of rejection will kill you? Aren't you afraid that you're going to work your whole life at this craft and nothing's ever going to come of it and you're going to die on a scrap heap of broken dreams with your mouth filled with bitter ash of failure? Like that, you know? And the answer, short answer to all those questions is yes. Yes, I'm afraid of all those things. And I always have been, and I'm afraid of many, many more things besides that, you know, people can't even guess at, like seaweed and other things that are scary. But when it comes to writing, the thing that I've been sort of thinking about lately and wondering about lately is why, you know? Is it rational? Is it logical that anybody should be expected to be afraid of the work that they feel they were put on this earth to do?
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is get things done.
So I was 50 pages into this thing, and I'm 25 years old, and it's not good, and it's not, I know what a good novel is, and it's not. This isn't working. And, you know, every dignified part of me wants to just put it in the bottom of the drawer and walk away. And then I just had this, like, warrior moment, and I just remember exactly where I was standing, and I stood up, and I said out loud, I never promised the universe I would be a good writer. I just promised the universe I would be a writer. That is the only thing I committed to. This is not my problem. And I just sort of said to, like, the fairies and the genies, I was like, if you guys want it to be good, you're going to have to chip something in here, because this is what I can do. If you want to add something, feel anytime, you know, feel free. And the other commitment I made was, I do not want to go to my grave with 50 pages of an unfinished novel in a drawer. There's enough of that in the world, you know. And the other thing was this voice where I was anticipating the criticism, because I knew what the criticism would be, because I knew where it wasn't good. And I just said out loud to all my future critics at that moment, I don't know what kind of language I can use on your show.
Every kind of language. We're from Jersey, girl.
If you don't like it, go write your own book. And you know what? You won't. Guess what? You won't. You won't. And guess what? I did, and therefore I won.
Yes.
Because mine's finished, and yours doesn't even exist, and now you're criticizing mine. This is like an imaginary conversation, by the way, with people who've never heard of me.
Yeah.
You know, but that's how I got through that first book, was just like, I just want it done, because as my mother always taught me, done is better than good. You know, the world's full of a bunch of really, really good, not done stuff.
Yes.
And if you can just finish something, you're already like 10 miles ahead of everybody else, because most people won't. And what will make you finish it is not discipline, but self-forgiveness. Because we all start our project on day one with the same level of excitement. And on day two, we all look at what we wrote on day one, and we all hate ourselves, because what we wrote on day one, or did on day one, whatever our creativity is, it's horrible.
Horrible.
And the people who go on day 3 and pick it up again and start over are not the most disciplined. It's not rigor that's going to get you there. It's saying, all right, then, I'm not Hemingway. I'm just going to do what I can. And you forgive yourself for disappointing yourself.
Now, I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, if you're still here watching and you promise, you commit that you're going to take action after watching this video, you're not just going to watch a video, you're going to do something afterwards, give me a hashtag believe in the comments, because I want to celebrate you.
If you never happened to believe in the first place that the most extraordinary aspects of your being came from you, but maybe if you just believed that they were on loan to you, you know, from some unimaginable source for some exquisite portion of your life to be passed along when you're finished with somebody else. And, you know, if we think about it this way, it starts to change everything. You know, this is how I've started to think, and this is certainly how I was thinking about it in the last few months, you know, as I've been working on the book that will soon be published as the dangerously, frighteningly over-anticipated follow-up to my freakish success. And what I have to sort of keep telling myself when I get really psyched out about that is don't be afraid, don't be daunted, just do your job. Continue to show up for your piece of it, whatever that might be. If your job is to dance, do your dance. If the divine, cockeyed genius assigned to your case decides to let some sort of wonderment be glimpsed for just one moment through your efforts, then olé. And if not, do your dance anyhow. And olé to you nonetheless. I believe this and I feel like we must teach it. Olé to you nonetheless, just for having the sheer human love and stubbornness to keep showing up.
If you want to see the top 10 I did on Bob Proctor, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
They are the big winners in life. You've got to realize that the minute you hold your mind in harmony with the good you want, then you've already got it.